I think we'll start, Alexis. Okay, welcome everyone to our third roundtable for the Creative Health Review. I'm Alex Coulter, Director of the National Centre for Creative Health. Before Christmas, we had roundtables on mental health and on health inequalities, and those are now available to watch on YouTube. We'll put the link in the chat. The roundtables are in Zoom webinar format, which means we can't see our audience, but a very big welcome to everyone who's already come in. That's about nearly 100 people now. We had over 250 people signed up, so people may come in as we go along, but also everyone will be sent the recording afterwards. Please do say in the chat who you are. It's really nice to know who's here, and we encourage you to share ideas and information with each other in the chat. Later on, when we have an opportunity for questions, please don't use the chat for your questions, but use the Q&A box, which you should be able to see across the bottom of your screen. And if you would like to ask a specific question of a speaker, please could you say who that is in your question? We may not have a great deal of time for questions because it's a very packed agenda. If we can answer them separately or after the event, we will do. And if you have any technical concerns, please put them in the chat and we'll try and help. So the National Centre for Creative Health and the All-Party Parliamentary Group on Arts, Health and Wellbeing's Creative Health Review aims to highlight the potential for creative health to help tackle pressing issues in health and social care and more widely, including health inequalities and the additional challenges we face as we recover from COVID-19. We have a panel of commissioners with a wide breadth of experience and expertise, and they will help us to translate the findings from the review into recommendations for policymakers to encourage and inform the development of a cross-governmental creative health strategy. Again, we'll put links in the chat for information about the review in general. Social care, the subject of our roundtable today, is rarely given the focused attention we give to health services. It is less visible and less valued by society. This week, we see the publication of the Archbishop's report on reimagining care, which calls for a national care covenant for England and a vision in which we live together in community with people caring for and supporting one another in relationships characterized by mutuality and interdependence. They state that supporting people to exist through basic personal care is not sufficient to attend to the deeper purpose and meaning of our lives, and that the central aim of social care should be to enable people to live the best lives they can, recognizing that each of us is individual and unique. We believe that creativity can help realize that vision. We are very grateful to Professor Martin Green, who I'm pleased to see is now with us, who is going to chair this roundtable. Martin is Chief Executive of Care England, the largest representative body for independent social care services in the UK. He is also a trustee of the National Centre for Creative Health and a tireless advocate for improving the quality of life of carers and those they care for. He is a champion of creative approaches to care and the perfect person to chair this event. Thank you, Martin. I'll hand over to you now.
Thank you so much, Alex. That's very kind of you, and thank you for that very generous introduction, and good morning, everybody. I think it's really an important time for us to have this seminar and to start talking about creativity and the important role that it can play in delivering high quality care. We as a sector are dealing with some major issues. So, for example, we were on the very front line of the pandemic, and that has resulted in a great deal of burnout of staff. We also are a sector that has some significant challenges around the recruitment and retention of staff. And I think we've seen from data that Skills for Care has delivered that we have about 156,000 vacancies. And we are all trying to both retain our wonderful staff, but also attract new people into our sector. Now, one of the things that I think we're going to have to do is think differently about how we support people to live well when they're using social care services, but also to think about how we can make this a really great and very rich occupation for people. And I think that creativity can be a real cornerstone of that. Many years ago, thanks to the wonderful support of the Bearing Foundation, the National Care Forum and Care England had a really dynamic and creative day around how creativity can be so important in the social care space. And from that, we have really embraced the notion of engaging with creative approaches, not only for the people who use services, but also for our staff. And I've seen countless examples, and I'm so pleased we've got so many wonderful people as panelists today, because they come from organizations that have really helped and supported the care sector to embrace creativity and to see the benefits for the people who use services, but also for the people who deliver them. And I think that creativity can be so important in enriching the quality of life for people in care, and also helping and supporting and enriching the quality of the experience that staff have. We are going to hear from some really fantastic people today, all in their very different ways. They are champions of creativity in the care sector. I'm also so pleased that we've got so many participants into this seminar, because it really shows for everybody that creativity is something that the care sector is embracing. And I think that we are starting a journey, and I know that in the future we're going to see far more creativity used, and I think the impacts of that are going to be huge and significant for the sector and for the people who use care and support services. So I think that's all I really want to say by way of introduction, other than to say also that as a trustee of the National Centre, I'm extremely proud of the work that Alex and all the colleagues have done. We have a very dynamic board led by Lord Howarth, and we have a fantastic group of people in our staff team. And every day they are working so hard to support creativity in health and care. So I really wanted to make sure that we all acknowledge, Alex, you and all the people who've been working so hard to make this seminar a reality, but also to make creativity in health and care a reality. So I will hand back to you now so that you can go through the panelists and presentations.
Thank you so much, Martin. That was extremely kind of you. Thank you. Do you want me to introduce the panelists, or are you going to do that?
I'm happy for you to do that, actually, if that's fine with you.
Okay. Okay, so first of all, we have mini presentations by the panelists who are using creative health in social care across the life course. And first of all, we have +1 from Derby Theatre. Tom Craig is community and learning producer, and Lucy James is composer. Tom and Lucy are going to introduce the work of +1, a creative partnership working with care experienced young people. Over to you, Tom and Lucy.
Thank you, Alex, and good morning, everybody. I'm Tom. It's lovely to meet you. Thank you to Hannah and the rest of the team for reaching out and asking for us to speak today. Lucy will be speaking in the second half of the presentation. We only have around 10 minutes, so I'm going to try and fly through my 5 minutes as respectfully as possible. So yeah, I'm here today to talk to you about +1, and +1 is Derby City's cultural gateway for looked after care experienced young people and their families. We're funded by Esme Fairbairn Foundation. We're built into the core MPO of Derby Theatre, which is our national portfolio status through the Arts Council. And we're also embedded in Derby City Council's approach to working with looked after and care experienced young people and their families. So what is +1? We have, our programme focuses around 4 main strands. Our first strand is our public-facing donation appeal. And that is spread right across Derby City's cultural education partner network, which is made up not just by Derby Theatre, but also Quad Cinema and Digital House, Dada, the Ballet and Dance House, Baby People, who are a contemporary music provider, Art Court and Derby Museum, Viva Sinfonia, and all of those organisations form our DSEP, Derby's Cultural Education Partnership, and Plus One works in partnership with all of those organisations in offering free, accessible provision and activity for any members of Plus One. So Plus One is advertised. Foster families, social workers, support workers, schools, families will sign up to become a member, and through that membership they then receive information about the scheme itself, free tickets so that they're able to go and access culture and creativity for free. That could be going to see a film at Quad, come and see a piece of theatre, attending the orchestra, but then also they're fed in to this kind of larger network, which I'm going to expand on during our time today. So that's our first strand, our public-facing kind of donations. When audience members come to see work at Derby Theatre or Quad or DADA, they are prompted with an appeal to donate 2+1, and that money piles up specifically for those tickets and opportunities. It isn't attached to our grants. It isn't attached to the MPO. It's literally a charitable donation strand, which proves really, really well. And over the 6 years that Plus One has been going, we kind of average anywhere between 600 and 900 tickets a year, which is a real great output to have. So that's our first strand. Secondly, we have creative mentoring. And creative mentoring is something that's extremely popular and works very, very well. And it places a professional artist working either one-to-one or in a group setting with young people who have been referred for creative mentoring. And I have a slide a little bit later on which talks about creative mentoring in great detail, but it really is at the core of our Plus One program because it is so popular, and the young people that go through that process are then at the other end of that journey, then fed into other wonderful opportunities that we have going on across the city. So we're really trying to diversify and cultivate a kind of looked after and care experience voice of artists within the city of Derby and surrounding areas as well. Our next strand is our performance projects, which is super exciting. We recruit and call upon young people and families from all across our network and give them the opportunity to have their say and make some work that represents themselves. And again, that's through employing freelance artists. We normally hold a kind of consultation. It's normally named a little bit in a more of a fun way than a consultation, but a kind of a workshop, and we'll pull people together and get their ideas and get their suggestions as to what they'd like to make and create. And we go ahead and use some of our funding to be able to provide them with the opportunities to do so. And again, I'll elaborate on that a little bit further into the presentation. And lastly, our newest strand of work, which we're developing currently for the next 2 years, is going to be our employability and volunteering strand. And this is looking at how we support care leavers to access not only employment, but specifically employment within the cultural sector. The diversity of care experience, young people being able to access work within the cultural sector at the moment is very low for lots and lots of different reasons, which somebody more educated than I can would probably be able to tell you a little bit more about. But certainly within Derby, we have the opportunity to support creative careers. And that certainly means that looked after and care experience care leavers need to be represented within that industry as well. So that's just a very fast overview of Plus One, and I apologise if I've kind of spoke a little bit too quickly there. All of this information can be found on Derby Theatre's website for a little bit more of a slower paced and coherent run through of what Plus One is. So partnership working, and I think this is where we are really succeeding at the moment to have the biggest impact on the city of Derby. We were actually really fortunate in some ways and unfortunate in other ways to have recently received part of the Levelling Up money that's been distributed across the city of Derby. And our real main reflection as an artistic organisation is how can we best use this money to support our communities and also our council in a way of helping those who are most affected by the current austerity and cost of living crisis. And I think that one framework that we already have in place is how we work with our city council to support our looked after and care experience young people and families in the city. So we're embedded right across our kind of social services. First of all, with our fostering families teams, we provide and produce 5 fostering family events a year. And this year we're really excited because we're going to be producing a weekend festival with them, where lots of families and young people are going to be invited and have some access to culture and creativity. But the main kind of reason why we started supporting these events was to be able to offer that pathway to culture and creativity for young people and families directly on the front line of meeting them and encouraging them to sign their children up to do some fun activities. So we, as I said, in terms of producing it, we employ some of our creative mentors, and they literally come along and show off and do what they do best. And as I say, try and inspire the young people and get them signed up. And that can be anything from the wonderful Lucy coming and playing a short gig for the families and young people, to some of our DJs and MCs to come and perform and hold some DJ workshops or lyric writing workshops, all the way down to being able to provide venue, space, and also cater the event as well. And I'm so proud that we've kind of worked so well with those fostering family team members as well, because those events have just grown and grown. At Christmas, we gave away 200 tickets to come and see The Wind in the Willows. We had 150 families and young people attend for the party, and the other 50 then came to see the show. But all of those tickets went, and that's a massive kind of compliment really to the Plus One programme to have 200 people come and access culture and creativity on the 23rd of December. Next, we're embedded into the residential homes in Derby City. So Derby City has 4 social residential homes for young people, one of which is for SEN inhabitants. And the residential home work is kind of an extension to our creative mentoring offer, except it works a little bit differently. We have consultation. I go out and meet and spend some time in those social homes. I kind of go every Tuesday, Wednesday or Thursday and work my way around. And even if that's just going for a cup of tea, but kind of rooting myself and making myself familiar with the young people and the staff who work within those spaces as well. And from those conversations, I kind of gauged a good idea of what they'd like more of. And this offer has kind of turned into providing a weekly opportunity for the young people that live in those homes, the opportunity to meet and collaborate with an adult or a professional artist. And that doesn't come attached with any sort of participation expectation whatsoever. The kind of brief for the artists that work in those residential homes is nothing more than go and set up, if you're an artist, set up your easel, set up your canvas, go and do what you love doing. And at 4 o'clock, when the young people come home, they will have that opportunity to join in, ask you questions, or tell you that they're not interested and go to their room. It literally just is a weekly offer for some sort of pathway to culture and creativity. Next up, we've now started hosting the Children in Care Council across our cultural organisations as well. And again, I think this is for both organisations, the City Council and the social team, and 4+1, the opportunity again to welcome young people into cultural spaces, but to also be able to offer some sort of creative facilitation that explores some of the things that they want to examine as well. The aftercare team, which used to be based in the Connections building, which wasn't very popular, has now moved back into the City Council house because of cuts. And they're working on a programme which launches in September called Staying Close. And that is an entire kind of mixture of partners who will all be contributing to supporting a referral-based number of young people as they move into independent living, and +1 are built in there to offer some sort of cultural enrichment and engagement opportunities. Baby People I've spoke about, Quad I've spoke about, they're other creative organisations in Derby, but I just want to touch on Catharsis at the bottom, because all of our work is supported by creative art therapy providers. So whether that's within our rehearsal rooms, whether that's looking after our creative mentors and mentees, offering one-to-one sessions with families and young people based upon the work and the journey that they've participated in with us as Plus One, we have a direct kind of partner organisation that is supporting the mental well-being and physical well-being of not only our participants, but also our artists and creatives as well. So next up, creative mentoring. Creative mentoring is on a referral basis through the virtual school. And the virtual school within Derby has been one of our longest supporters and advocates, really. They really champion our programme. They support us with not only kind of funding, but also with some real kind of mentorship and training opportunities as well for our mentors. And as I mentioned, our creative mentoring programme, we receive a referral. We then offer them the opportunity to see a directory of artists that they could work with. They take their pick. I normally kind of say their top 3, but not in any order because it's based upon availability. And then once we get a match, we then set up a matching meeting, which brings all parties together, and we go through what we call our Plus One creative mentoring promise. And that outlines responsibility that everybody within that party is responsible for. A lot of them overlap, but some of them are very specific in relation to making sure that the mentor is inspiring and has planned their lesson. The mentee turns up on time, is responsible for their behaviour. As I say, a lot of crossover, but some of them are more specific to individual roles within the process. And then they go for their first 6-session or 6-week block of mentoring. The example I always give for mentoring is that we receive, through our referral process, obviously a very brief sometimes, or kind of a background about that young person, and that's also supported through virtual school. And creative mentoring isn't about teaching a young person who wants to play piano, teaching them how to play piano. It's about, through creativity, being able to give them a holistic journey and holistic support, really, to be able to outline other areas of their life in which they would like some confidence or some development in. So the example I always give is that if we have a budding painter or an illustrator who maybe suffers from low confidence, social anxiety, and their creative mentor will be working to kind of take them to galleries and get them out into the world to go and see and have some further exposure to creativity and art other than what they may see on their computer screens or in their bedrooms, wherever that may be. After that 6, we then have a review session. They then, if everybody is happy, we outline some goals and reflect on the previous 6, and then we will encourage to go for another 6. It's not uncommon that young people sometimes want to switch mentors and do something new, and we wholeheartedly support that and want young people to receive the best out of their time spent with Plus One and with their creative mentors. All of those artists are paid. That's paid work for artists. That also includes a training strand which runs throughout the year, safeguarding one-to-one, trauma-informed practice, sexual exploitation training, all of the kind of things that you would imagine would go with working with young people. So yeah, that's our creative mentoring strands. The performance projects, this is just a list of some of them that we've done over the previous 4 years, I think there. But I'll just very quickly talk about Odyssey, which was our latest piece of work, which is actually shortlisted for a stage award. Lucy and I are going on Monday to hopefully collect that award for all of our Plus One young people. The competition's very stiff, but we're hopeful. And obviously the kind of, just to be shortlisted represents the huge span of work that went into creating Odyssey. And I'm running out of time, so I won't talk about it. I'm going to try and show you this quick video, which may or may not work. I don't know. Let's see. I don't think it's going to work, which is awkward. But fine, you can view that on YouTube. I'll send that link over, that's not a problem. But Odyssey worked with 75 young people and families all across the city of Derby. It came from working in residential homes and young people not engaging with any sort of education or provision. All they wanted to do is sit in their rooms and play video games. So I went away and got in contact with a virtual reality making company, and we took headsets into care homes and we started to design worlds and explore what creativity could be in empty spaces. We then held public workshops, and families from across our network came and did the same workshops as well. We brought on a professional writer in Simon Marshall, a professional composer, Lucy James, who you'll hear from shortly. And from that, we began to work with a refined number of young people to create a live performed audio play, which was a virtual reality experience for its audience. And we held that within Derby College Roundhouse building, which is a really beautiful space. And families, young people, support workers, social services, all came to kind of experience that and share that celebration with us of that work. And Odyssey for myself as director and artist was about telling stories that don't necessarily have to reveal that you are in care or going through some sort of trauma. It is about telling universal stories of home and journey and discovery, with the potential for aspiration at the end of that. So a really, really beautiful piece. So I'm now going to be quiet and hand over to Lucy. Thank you very much for your attention. But yeah, Lucy, I'll now hand over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Tom. That was wonderful and really a full circle moment for me. And with that in mind, I will be basically contextualizing the potential and importance that I see in the relationship between creativity and social care in discussing my experience of Plus One. So, Tom, would you mind moving the slide along for me? Thank you so much. So this is a little bit about my background as a care experience person. Now, unfortunately, as a child, I did experience domestic abuse whilst living with my biological family, but I immediately found solace in music and songwriting as escapism. And this became a subconscious therapeutic practice for me even before entering the care system. So there was a clear inherent link between creative health and personal well-being. And I entered the care system at age 16, causing a severe deterioration in my mental health and questioning my perception specifically of the themes of identity and belongingness. So during this period of adjustment, I had lost a lot of drive and confidence in my creativity and suffered from quite a debilitating social anxiety. And in reflecting on this time, I feel that my needs as a young person in the care system were a sense of reestablishing belongingness and confidence to build a sense of community and ultimately redesign what my future could potentially look like. So I connected with my foster family over music and theatre and was encouraged by my foster parents' support worker to join Plus One. Now, it's important to mention that during this time, this interaction with Plus One and finding out about Plus One was of complete happenstance, as this is not currently part of DCC's social care offer. And therefore, at the time in 2015, that was not something that was widely known of to social workers. And therefore, it very much felt like a very lucky situation that I was able to engage from such an early point. So I joined Plus One in December 2015, and I was anxious to meet new people and exercise my creativity publicly, but ultimately driven to participate by the excitement of pursuing my passion of writing music. And during my 2 years of participation, I wrote and performed original music for countless live music events, theatre projects and film projects, working with a diverse network of creative practitioners. So the dynamic that allowed the safe space in reflection to be so effective in my perspective was the community building through a mutual love of creativity and the desire to express and feel heard and represented in the art made by the young people. So the fact that we all just happened to be care experience felt secondary to this, which put value in our self-directed construction of identity and belongingness, which to me felt incredibly empowering. So in participating with Plus One, I found an incredibly strong sense of community and belongingness, and the environment provided by Plus One gave me the confidence, ultimately after 2 years, to begin a bachelor's degree at the Academy of Contemporary Music, something I'd never considered to be a prospect of my future. So after graduating in 2019, I began my career as a freelance composer, sound designer, and musical director, and was immediately hired by Plus One at the beginning of the pandemic to support their mission of champion care experience voices through creative arts projects. So as you can imagine, and probably know from firsthand experience, Entering and sustaining a freelance career in the arts industry amidst a pandemic felt incredibly scary. And navigating this idea alongside social isolation, which is a particularly sensitive experience for anyone who has experienced isolation in other forms, such as through social care. I felt that the introduction of consistent creative opportunities and remote interaction with +1 was essential to me finding my feet, and it became clear that this sense of consistency was paramount to the creative health of the young people involved and was immeasurably valuable in creating a sustainability of well-being and supporting. So moving on to opportunities. My relationship with +1 was the catalyst for my career as a freelance researcher, also working with Esme Fairbairn's Care Experience Young People's Network from 2020 to 2022, and carrying out studies for the Mighty Creatives on the importance of youth voice within the cultural education partnerships. So working alongside many local freelancers provided a strong supportive creative network for me as a young professional and as a person experiencing social care. And I'm currently now studying a full-time master's degree in songwriting at ICMP, continuing my freelance composition with +1 and working alongside Associate Songwriting Professor Sophie Daniels and Middlesex University to produce a study on the benefits of songwriting as a creative practice for care leavers. So with all of this in mind, it feels very important for me as purpose to establish the creative relationships between social care and well-being, and the importance of expressing that through the arts industry and arts opportunities as an essential part of my practice and my research. So I would like to preface my reflections upon my findings with the fact that I have been incredibly fortunate in my experience of care, having the freedom to explore my passions and the ambition to fulfill my goals, and also a loving foster family to support my journey. And I'm completely aware and would love to give respect to the fact that this is a privilege that not all care experienced people are afforded. So with this in mind, the takings that I've found from all angles of my experience as both a participant and a freelancer contributing to +1 and also a researcher is that the opportunity of an accessible platform to develop and exercise creativity has played a vital role in the exploration of identity and belongingness specifically. The community of +1 and the consistent opportunities for engagement provided stability and contribute to the long-term trajectories of young people, personally and professionally. This is absolutely manifested within my personal journey, as I had never considered the opportunity of studying higher education or pursuing my passions professionally. And in doing so, supporting other care experienced people in finding their sense of identity and belongingness through creative output. And finally, voicing stories of care through a wide range of art forms has brought awareness to the importance of accessibility. It has brought an incredible awareness to me of my privilege as someone with a loving foster family who is able to find connection with them and how that's supported me in my professional practice and personal well-being. But it's also really raised the importance to me of people in all forms of care having equal access to opportunities such as +1. The consistent factors between many people in social care, from my perspective, have thus far been the need to feel heard and seen, the ability to express, and the ability to build a sense of community in doing so. And for me, that is something that +1 has been an incredibly welcoming space for and has catalyzed to the nth degree. So with this in mind, I find that a provocation for development in the relationship between social care and creative health would be programs such as +1 being embedded in a robust social care offer. So all young people within social care having equal access and knowledge of opportunities that allow them to express themselves and explore creative health. Thank you so much for your time today. I hope that was an efficient speed run of the life story, but I hope everyone found something useful from that. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Tom and Lucy. That's absolutely fantastic. And you'll see from the chat how people would really love this all over the country. So I think your recommendation is spot on, Lucy. We don't have time for any further reflections at this point. We must move on to our next speakers, if that's okay. So next we have Lucinda Jarrett from Rosetta Life and Anne-Dolores Chacon from Bristol Black Carers. Anne-Dolores, I hope I've pronounced your name correctly.
Yes, it's okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And thank you, Tom and Lucy. What an amazing presentation. And thank you for the privilege of speaking here today. My name is Lucinda Jarrett. I'm Artistic Director of Rosetta Life. And in the next 4 minutes, I'm going to tell you briefly about our work in social care. And then I'm going to outline the international alliance we brought together to look at how we might change representation, perception, and understanding of care. And I'm delighted that Anne-Dolores is here to speak with me and share the views and findings. So as background, in 2015, we worked with South London stroke communities to co-design a co-creation practice, a performance programme that would improve the quality of life of those living with effects of brain injury and stroke. The success of this programme led to a network of ambassadors, and replication of this programme meant that there were ambassadors in Donegal, Bristol, Reading, and Buckinghamshire, as well as London. These ambassadors wanted to support the recovery of those who had a new diagnosis of brain injury. And the impact of creativity on them meant that they were empowered and had the agency and confidence to support others. So some now support artists in clinical contexts, in hospitals. Some run art groups, craft groups, and singing groups independently in their community. Others buddy and befriend people, and others support new performance programs. But the importance of this pathway was that there is a model of creativity empowering people to enable people to create that creative, caring community that we're talking about. In lockdown, we were all isolated, so we brought everyone together with the support of Arts Council funding to create an online opera. And at the heart of this opera was the story of a husband and wife. It came from a story someone told us about after a new diagnosis of a stroke. A man woke up in London thinking he was in New Zealand. And his wife said to him, "You're going to have to find your way back from New Zealand to me. Not only that, you're going to have to walk." And that enabled us to think, my goodness, imagine what she had to do to help him walk back from New Zealand to her. And that journey became the core of the short online opera. And therefore, we built together a carers chorus for the first time. And in hearing their stories, we learned about how isolated people felt, how invisible, and how unheard. So after that process, for the first time, we worked with Bristol Black Carers and formed an alliance with Helix Arts in Tyneside, Kingston Carers, Caregivers Sati in India, the National End of Life Care Research Team in Rwanda, and Palchase that delivers palliative care in humanitarian contexts. And we asked carers what they felt the most important thing that we needed to address if we were going to come together as a group of creative artists who might work with them. And the Alliance said that what they wanted to do was to honour those who care for others, but more importantly, help us value the grace of care and forge new perceptions of dignity, compassion, and joy in caregiving, while not forgetting the challenges and recognising and honouring those as well. That was the first thing. And the second thing was to explore how to maintain a balance between caregiving and self-care and prevent burnout. And so with this challenge, we created 3 small projects. With Kingston Carers, they wanted to write poetry. Some of the poetry was about challenging perception of care and exploring care. Some was about self-care, simply writing for themselves. Helix Arts in Tyneside looked at creative journaling and had this beautiful image of the cairn, the stone cairns you find on beaches across England, as an image of how you find balance and how you put balance together for yourself. And in Bristol, we worked with Bristol Black carers, and they said they wanted to explore, they'd explore poetry, they wanted to explore dance. I spent many years looking at the art of touch and dance in palliative care and exploring how touch is important in movement, not only as a stimulus to prompt someone to move, but also as that dialogic relational moment where you meet someone and how that meeting is a supportive process in movement and supporting creative movement. And so we worked together for 3 or 4 sessions and made a very short film, which you can see on the website, theheartofcare.net. But we've cut together for you today a short 2.5-minute extract of that video. And I think it's the reason I chose to focus on this project is because I think it's a good example of how you can work with what is a creative movement practice, a dance practice, as an act of self-care, but also giving, and looking at what we think of or is a common practice in healthcare, the art of touch, but reformulate that and begin to think of it as a creative practice as well, both for ourselves and those we care for. Thank you very, very much. I'm going to hand over. Oh, what a horrid old it. There's no sound.
Lucinda, maybe if you switch your sound off, Hannah can put hers on.
Thank you. And then the last touch. Remember, we called it the hand that asks for nothing. And you keep your hand as free as possible. Put a hand there, and my attention is far, far away. So the hand is asking for nothing, but I'm here.
And Beth said to me, she felt the difference. So she could tell you what she felt.
Yeah.
Yeah, the listening hand. It's nice and calming.
That sometimes someone just wants to know that someone is there, just there. You know, just turn around and they could look and they're just there. Do you know what I mean? Sometimes you could just lean your head like that as well. You know, just knowing that someone might be listening and you're just somewhere else. Yes.
It helps me to identify that we don't always have to say anything or ask what it is we need to do, and just let the person be present and feel for themselves and know that we are there to support.
Yeah, I think people would feel safe and wanted, and that they notice that they're there. You know, they're not just there. People notice that they are there, and people have an interest in them and their best interest as well. So yeah, it's nice, definitely.
It helps them to feel confident. Yes, because the cared for, we always think we have to do something for them, but we're saying to them, we can just be in each other's presence and enjoy that moment. Like I'm free, like I'm in space, like I'm wave to move, you know, I'm on a wavelength, in motion to move with, you know, just in one. And I feel sometimes when my bones are stretched, my muscles are stretched, and I can feel my skin like, or my shoulder creak, like I can hear it just okay. And I feel, you know, it's so smooth. My neck comes back up and stretches again once more into line, into motion, and then I go back. And it's nice, it's relaxing.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Andalores Chacon. I am the CEO for Bristol Black Carers. I am a registered nurse. I am a poet and an author. So you know why this is of great interest to me in terms of health and social care. I'm now going to share my presentation with you and then talk about the video after. Can everyone see? I hope. Yes, this is Bristol Black Carers. And here are 3 of our carers with their cared for. Bristol Black Carers is a charity that provides support, advice, advocacy, and many other things for carers and their families from the Caribbean, African, Asian communities as our focus. As you can see, we are a multi-award winning charity recently, and we want to focus and change the narrative around carers. So I would say to you, a carer is a person who has the responsibility for someone 24/7 that may be living or not living with that cared for, because we constantly think of caring as being present to bath someone, to take care of personal hygiene. Please do not limit your caring meaning to just those things. It's a lot more than that, because I believe within this group that's here, maybe 50% of you are actually carers and you don't identify yourself as a carer. So remember, a carer can be parent, sibling, aunt, uncle, friend, relative, and it is an additional role to that role of being in the family. So please don't think when you start caring for someone, it is your duty, it is your right to do that for them, but it is an additional role because it takes away from your role in the family. And there is where people get lost and clash between a carer, being a carer, and being a husband, being a wife, or any member or friend within that family, and the relationships do suffer. Again, one of my big bear bugs is the word carer. We have been using it to call other professionals and other people carers, but they are, I will say to you, they are care workers, and their title should not be carer, because they are only in the carer's life and the cared for life just for a fraction of the time. The person who is there maybe living in London and have somebody in Bristol, and they have to be on the end of the telephone to know when something happens, to be representing, to speaking to the GP, to managing budgets. Those are the carers. Those are the people who take on the responsibility and the stress of caring for their loved ones. So please let us stop putting adjectives before the word carer so that carers can have their value as a carer, because informal and unpaid could never describe what a carer does. So I hope from today, we start giving carers back their name and care workers their titles. So Bristol Black Carers covers a lot of different services because our carers come to us with different issues and some come with multiple issues. So this is just a simple diagram of what has happened. And during COVID, we started a project called Meals on Wheels with Flavor. And from April 2020 to July 2021, we delivered 3,742 cooked meals to our carers and cared for. And I did not realize the impact until one of the carers said to me, I can finally take my medication on time because I have a meal. She was forgetting to prepare a meal for herself while caring for her mom with dementia. So a meal may sound simple, but those are things that affect our carers. Those are things that are luxury for them. Those are things in self-care is missing. So we try to support as best we can according to the situation. We do home visits, we do hospital visits, just to give them that support in physically being present with them. And there is where the arts came in for us. As a registered nurse, as a student, when I visited patients who were long stay, I used to read to them and play music for them. And there was a difference the next morning when I go back to visit. So coming into Bristol Black Carers, I realized the same thing arts can do. So we started doing small programs like painting, freehand painting, and those are 3 of our pictures from our carers. We also use art and craft. And in art and craft, we created a mobile display with all these different sayings on them so that people could gain part of history. We use drumming and dance with the young people, let them free themselves and not think about the burden. So yes, they're learning a skill, but they're also giving freedom to their soul. And everyone said that they enjoyed it. Again, we did painting. And the last picture where it says music, we use music memory box for dementia. And one of the feedback that I hold on to is that Kara said, when I had this box with my mom, it created new memories and we were no longer fighting because she became subdued to the music and followed instructions without being agitated. So again, we fail to realize how much the arts can calm our souls in taking care of ourselves as well as others. This is drawings that were done with our carers when we did our first workshop with Rosetta Life for the video that you saw. And each person represented caring according to their word. And those were some of the words that came true. Caring is sharing. Caring is listening, comforting, energy flowing from one person to the other. So therefore, we don't always have to physically do something, but we just have to be present. And people fail to realize sometimes just holding someone's hand could convey more than any words can say because you fumble for words. So if you have a relative or a carer that you are visiting, just give them a hold their hand and say, I am here. Or don't even say anything. Just hold their hand and they will feel that message. So the second workshop, we went out into the open air and explored ourselves moving to music, making movements, and feeling free. And it was strange that everybody heard the music, but each person had a different movement, as you can see from the photographs. So it was from within you, you find that peace. From within yourself, you can start taking care of yourself. So we have encouraged our carers to start dancing. You don't have to do much movement. And one of our carers said to us, oh, I could dance while I'm cooking the food. And in truth and in fact, that can release some of the stress while you're doing that. So it's knowing how to put all these little things into place to help us relax, de-stress, and be able to continue caring as we do. And I believe most of us don't realize that we are giving care in by handing a glass of water to someone who cannot reach it, or preparing a meal for someone, oh, come and join me for a meal, having a chat. All that is being creative, but we don't see it as creativity. So again, inviting someone who you know is caring for someone out to dinner, at your home, or just to have a cup of coffee is giving them that space to be free. So I would like everybody to remember carers because they suffer in silence and we need to give them the space to ask for help so that they can be helped and share their burden without looking for anything. Like the video says, the hand that asks for nothing, let them be present, let them know that you're there. And then they will be able to feel safe and secure, like one of this mentioned in the video, and they would then be able to share with you and not feel as though I don't need to talk to this person. I don't want them to put me down. And that is one of the major things that we tend to do, is that we dismiss when people say, I'm tired. But you shouldn't be tired as your mother you're caring for. They are allowed to be tired. They are allowed to be angry. They are allowed to be stressed. So with creativity, we can give them avenues to do that and not feel guilty. So helping someone to carry their responsibilities of caring does not mean you have to solve everything. You just need to give them a listening ear. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Andaloris and Lucinda. That's fantastic, full of so much interesting stuff, really brilliant around using carer and care worker and the hand that asks for nothing. Thank you. We're going to move straight on to Douglas Noble, who is Strategic Director of Adult Social Care and Healthcare at Live Music Now, and Shona Bradbury and Tracy Judd from Appleby House Care Home.
Good morning, and thanks for inviting me to take part in this event. Really delighted to be part of this these presentations. Been learning so much and enjoying what I've been hearing from others involved. It's been really great. So yes, I'm presenting with Shona, Tracy and Patricia from Appleby House Care Home. The first 5 minutes is me talking about live music in care as a program from Live Music Now, and then we're going to illustrate that with Shona, Tracy and Pat joining us to talk about their experiences of taking part in one of the projects, one of the Live Music and Care projects. So Live Music Now, for those that don't know, we're a national social impact charity, and we use music for positive change with communities. And in the context of today, we're talking about care homes as communities. Care homes, in the context of this work, care homes for older people, including older people living with dementia, but we work much more broadly than that. Our work is needs targeted, evidence-based, and we work with trained, diverse, talented musicians. And when I say diverse, what I mean is that they reflect the rich musical landscape of the United Kingdom, which is fantastic and broad and diverse, but also that they reflect the communities that we work within and the wider society. And we deliver tested, effective programs, which we develop with partners, stakeholders, and academics. There's a link there to our website if you want to find out more, and our Twitter feed. So I'm talking today, as I said, about Live Music in Care, which is one of those programs which we deliver nationally. And when I say nationally, we work across England, Wales, and Northern Ireland with regional branches. It's delivered in care homes for older people. And the programs are around workforce development, and that's the focus of today's presentation for the teams that work in those care homes, but also around well-being for those teams and well-being for the people who live in those care homes. We created the program through a co-creative process with care providers and a study with the University of Winchester. And you can look at the study and there's films, and again, I'll share the links to that. The way we do it is through a professional musician working in residence, building relationships with the teams and residents, using musical identities. And what I mean by musical identity, that we all have musical identities. The musicians bring theirs, but then of course those of the residents and of the teams in the care home are important within that. It creates a place of meeting and sharing, but also a place for activity to happen and for relationships to build. The residencies include making music, but also skills training, co-delivery, planning and reflection between the musicians and the care teams that they're working with. And it's a three-way partnership really between the musicians, the care teams and the people that live in the care homes. And we nurture and develop musical care. And I'll say a little bit more about what I mean by that by talking about the outcomes. So for the teams, we develop the understanding of how music can be used effectively and its role within that community and within the caring relationship, living and working relationship. We develop their confidence and their skills in being able to deliver music as part of their day-to-day care. And that leads to improved well-being for the residents and the care teams themselves. So the residents, we look at the kind of engagement, mood, relationships, voice and agency, and we gather data around that, as well as around individual health benefits, such things as kind of reduction in use of antipsychotic medication comes through, or increase around kind of hydration or food and other things. And there's also impacts for the whole setting, which is the increased effective use of music as an integrated part of the living and working experience. So it doesn't take away from the importance of music as an enjoyable, creative, entertaining activity, but it adds to that. So it becomes something that supports transitions, including settling in. It's a tool to be used around moments of anxiety and distress. It's something that can support voice, choice and agency, and it can support very individual care transactions. And there's a few quotes there from some of the care workers that we've been working with over the last few months. Obviously, we're a learning and developing organisation, and really want to move it forward. Where do we want to go with it next? Well, we're really interested and already working with a number of kind of, as well as individual care homes, working with national providers to kind of work in partnership around broader workforce development, as well as targeted into specific care homes. There's commissioning starting to come in through the integrated care boards and partnerships, and we're really interested in developing that. We want to move into a closer co-production relationship with the teams and residents, and we're going to be working with the Orders of St John's Care Trust around that over the next couple of years. And we're developing a badge of excellence open award, which recognises the achievement of the care teams that are taking part in it. There's a huge issue around the undervaluing of people who work in care, and we really want to make sure that there's a reflection of the achievement and value. There's my email if people want to get in touch with me, and our Twitter feed and our web address. So we're going to go and move on to the second part of this presentation, which is a bit of a case study. We worked over spring and summer of last year with Appleby House Care Home, which is a Care UK setting. We delivered it was Will Ball and Craig McLaren, musicians, that delivered a 10-week residency with that live music care model, the training, the co-planning, the reflection, co-delivery, as well as music workshops, moving towards a final concert. But I'm going to introduce Shona, Tracy and Patricia from Appleby House, who Shona is the manager, Tracy is the lifestyle lead, and Patricia is a member of the choir, and they're going to talk about their experiences of taking part in that residency. So I'm going to stop sharing so they can join on the screen.
Hi, can you hear us?
Yes, hello. Hi there.
Hello.
Good morning. Lovely to see you. Thanks for joining us.
You're all so professional at this. We're panicking here.
As we said the other day, we just want to hear you talk about your respective experiences. I know you've got loads to say. There's 5 minutes, you could talk for 5 hours, I know. And I know that you put together some points that you would like to share. So I'm going to hand over to you, Shona, Patricia and Tracy to speak.
Thank you very much, Douglas. We were very lucky. I'm a member of the Nappers Arts and Care Homes, lovely Alison Teeder, to meet Douglas and Live Music Now. They came into our life. We 7 years ago started a choir, and we would have maybe a session a week. Sometimes it didn't happen, sometimes it did. Then Live Music Now came, and it has changed everything. It's how do we get everything that we want to talk about and the benefits to our home in 5 minutes. For the start, the residents just changed, and we now have sessions, up to 5 times a week now. I love to invite myself to come along and sing, much to everybody's distaste. I sometimes think I should have been Mariah Carey, but never mind. I love how honest the residents have become, and they'll tell you exactly what they think. So we have our sessions in what we call the Apple Lounge. We are an extraordinarily creative environment anyway. We're presenting today from our art studio. We have our music sessions in what we call the Apple Lounge. It's right in the centre of the home. So when the music starts and the residents are singing, it just radiates this energy through to every part of the home. And for staff and visitors coming in, you have two choices: either join in or you smile. We don't limit the songs. We have people here ranging from 66 now to 98, coming on 99, right across the spectrum. But when we wanted to have our video with live music now, we actually rehearsed to One Direction's History. We sing all the genres, every type of music.
So we have an eclectic mix of songs,
Yeah.
don't we? So,
Yeah.
And it's very resident led. So, you know, they will point me in the right direction of what songs that they want to sing. And that's amazing. It's such a sense of community. And the confidence has just grown within the group, literally grown. And it's just incredible to watch and so empowering to me to be able to have the knowledge and confidence by working with live music to be able to create these sessions and watch them grow. What do you think? Do you think that would?
Oh, yeah.
What do you think of the choir? How does it make you feel being in there?
Exactly, because you wouldn't sing on your own.
I wouldn't.
Singing in a group, you get lost in it and you thoroughly enjoy it.
So we've taken it one step further by adding what we call movement through body percussion. So we're creating music with our bodies as well, and the laughter created within the room gives it a joyous, fun time and experience for the residents, which is absolutely incredible to watch them grow with that too.
It's always fun.
And also for me, what we've got better at doing is actually evidencing the benefits of music. So I've got loads where people have come in with poor appetites, and you can absolutely see how much somebody's eaten and drinks after a session. Plus, we always have something to eat and drink whilst we're doing sessions as well. But I wanted to talk about, just over a week ago, we had a resident very distressed. She'd previously been to another care home. It didn't work. They tried it at home. Social services put monitoring in, police visits several times because neighbours were concerned, came in, and unfortunately with her dementia, we specialise in dementia here. All 75 people that live here live with some form of dementia, apart from Pat, who doesn't. So she came in, and at home, she didn't recognise home either, was quite distressed. She, day 3, joined a choir session. I'm in my office as she's walking back, chatting. And I swear to God, I've been in care 33 years, like a switch had been turned on. And she spent the whole evening in the lounge chatting. And I look back at the daily notes. It's the first night she'd slept all the way through. What that's now enabled her to do is to go on to join others. She may not want to come in to another choir session, but she's now joined in other activities going on in the home, and we have not looked back. It has changed. And that's just the power of music. We know music is powerful, but we're about evidencing it now. Absolutely. And we can absolutely see the benefits. And it's not just residents, it's a staff.
Yeah, it's watching the change in everybody, and the passion for music has now run through the whole home. I mean, we've introduced Alexas on some of the suites where residents have the opportunity to be able to ask Alexa to play their favorite music. We have a gentleman that will constantly sit in the reception area, and he is a massive Elvis Presley fan, and you will often hear him requesting, Alexa, will you play? Yes, absolutely. He's learned how to use it, and he plays all of his favorite Elvis Presley music. And when residents are singing in the choir, you get staff walking past and just humming the choir songs, going down the corridors, which is absolutely incredible to hear, and the passion that everybody has within there.
It's free.
Exactly.
It's free once someone's trained to just add. I mean, Our occupancy is very good. At the moment, touch wood, we use no agency, we're overstaffed. I absolutely categorically, due to being creative, would say that's a big part of why we would have an outstanding by CQC. Our whole environment, it started as a journey. We do all forms of art, and we're always exploring new ways, you know, to introduce art. But with the choir and the percussion now, it's also that opportunity for it's hand movements and physical movements as well. It's not just singing, but we've seen friendships develop. People become way more confident, people eating and drinking better, distressed behavior with no need for antipsychotic medication. It's just a game changer, and has got to be the way forward for all care. We live and breathe creativity, and we see the benefits of it. It's a fun place to be. It's a really fun place to be.
Residents
Would you not
well,
agree? That is it a nice place to live?
Yes.
Thank you all so
Lovely
much.
to hear from you.
That's
Thank you.
absolutely fantastic.
Bring in their own home.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you, Douglas.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you all, and thank you, Shona, because some of that evidence you were expressing is really, really valuable, and we do need to capture it. I'm sure Douglas is doing that. Thank you, and we are running very late on our time, so RT, Prussia, and then South Bank Centre, if you are able to slightly compress your time, that would be brilliant, because one of our panellists, Liz Jones, is only here until past, so we have to go straight through into the panel afterwards. But thank you, everyone, and we will go straight on to RT, Prussia, artist and consultant. Thanks.
Hi, thank you very much. So I'll move straight on. I might show some pictures later on, but if not, if I don't have time, I'm just going to speak to you all. So hello, and thank you for inviting me to speak and to share my experiences as a community artist, researcher and consultant, and as the daughter of parents who had vascular dementia and Parkinson's related Alzheimer's disease. My name is Arthi Prussia. I'm 60 with greying dark brown hair. I wear tortoise-rimmed glasses. My skin is light brown, and I'm from the global majority. I apologise that I have not been able to make this interaction more sensory, but if you have an orange close by, peel it and just enable the oils from the orange to just fill your senses as you listen. The following quote is from a South Asian artist interviewed for the report Visionaries. I hope the link's in the biography, or I can put it in the chat later. The arts are a gateway to our collective humanity, and ethnically diverse communities need a parity of esteem in the cultural, and I would add, in the health landscape. Around 2010, I began researching arts and dementia, and a couple of years into this, I was awarded a Churchill Fellowship to research dementia and spirituality, to explore global majority thinking on loss and end of life and passing on within specific cultural contexts. My summary of the report and my practice is empathy, compassion, stillness. I do not focus my practice on reminiscence, but on the here and now. So The Garden, it was a multi-sensory show for people living with dementias, which relied heavily on space transformation because it went into care homes. So we used projection, smell, touch, which we've already heard about, taste and sound to enhance the experience. It was part inspired by my mum's love of her garden and flowers. The theme of seasons and communing with nature unintentionally became a metaphor for an end-of-life spiritual journey. Care home audiences, many who were at the end of life and with dementia, were awakened, engaged, and in awe of what they were experiencing. Many sat in total silence at the end of the show. We touched people on a deep emotional, physical, and psychological level. Whilst touring the garden over 3 years and around 50 care homes and daycare centres across the UK, I started to wonder why we weren't reaching more global majority communities in the UK. After all, this was a non-verbal interaction piece of theatre cutting across cultural and language barriers. So research was conducted asking, is dementia taboo within the South Asian diaspora in the UK? Could the arts dismantle this taboo? How culturally specific does the project have to be? And the report is available on the Bearing Foundation website. We spoke to 120 people, including doctors, scientists, community workers, and of course, older people. People from different religions with different languages and cultures within the South Asian diaspora. I then produced a non-verbal show collaborating with older South Asian people, Love Unspoken, a show using a South Asian aesthetic involving folk and classical dance, Indian folk and classical dance, Urdu and Punjabi poetry, jasmine oil, and classic Indian film songs. It was designed to enable older South Asian carers in particular to perform alongside us, which we did. We've heard a lot about carers, and that's what our aim was at that stage after the garden. It resonated profoundly with our South Asian participants and audiences, and unfortunately the pandemic halted further tours of Love Unspoken. However, during the pandemic, Visionaries, the South Asian Arts and Aging Counter-Narrative, is a report commissioned by the Creative Aging Development Agency, CARDA. It was researched and written with Elizabeth Lynch, as was the previous report mentioned, the Bearing Foundation report. It's well worth reading the Visionaries report if you haven't already, as the case studies and artists' words are truly thought-provoking. I want to mention a few projects before I end. One in particular, Sangeeni. Sangeeni is a Black and South Asian-led multicultural arts, women's arts organisation based in Tyne and Wear. Developed a visual arts project to reach Bangladeshi women aged 55 plus experiencing isolation and loneliness during the pandemic. They ran a project over Zoom in the evenings with South Asian artists who spoke South Asian languages to lead the project. The women slowly bonded over songs, exploration of their names, calligraphy, and by just listening to each other's stories. Their mental health reduced, as did their isolation. They rediscovered or discovered their love for creativity. Their artwork, a calligraphy exhibition, was placed in a mainstream gallery. Their pride was evident. They were being seen and heard locally and nationally, and, quite importantly to them, their families and communities. That is the power of community arts done well, which works artistically, culturally, and within a health and well-being context. The project developed by carefully working within cultural and religious parameters, and crucially by listening to what the women needed. Touchstone in Leeds, I think, is another organisation that goes a long way towards meeting the needs of the global majority communities living with dementia through arts interventions that then bring about positive health results. And so I'll just finish by saying, I think we need more support, recognition, and understanding for the potential of grassroots projects like the two that I've just mentioned, especially those working with global majority communities, and perhaps we could learn something from them. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Arti. And in the chat, you'll see that quite a lot of people are now reflecting on what change is needed at a more strategic level to embed this kind of work. And in fact, what I'm going to do is ask Liz Jones, Policy Director for the National Care Forum, to give some reflections on what she's heard so far and on this policy arena. Before we go on to the South Bank Centre. I hope that's okay with everyone because Liz has to leave at past. So Liz, would you like to just speak a little bit about what you've heard and what you think our recommendations should be?
Well, yeah, thank you. Thank you for inviting me. And I'm sorry I couldn't join earlier. To be honest, I think this might have been more interesting than the thing I was on earlier. Fascinating presentation from Arti. Really powerful stuff about community grassroots work there. From my perspective, so the National Care Forum is a representative body of not-for-profit care and support providers, and our members range really from kind of more traditional providers of care homes for older people through to home care providers, extra care, supported living, community-based day services, and some homelessness and rehab type services. So we've got a breadth of different types of providers across England, really. Some of them work in the devolved nations as well. But the thing that unites them really is their not-for-profit status and their not-for-profit kind of vision and ambition. I met Douglas quite a few years ago, and Grace actually, and one of the best jobs that I've had has been working for a large charitable provider where I got to manage their music therapy service, which really opened my eyes to the power of creativity, not just in healthcare settings, but in a range of social care settings and environments, and just how amazing the use of all types of different sorts of creativity, whether it's music, whether it's art, whether it's dance, whether it's poetry, the power that the use of different types of creative involvement and inspiration really has for people who perhaps may have a range of other types of needs that make it harder for them to engage fully. And we don't really have a society that encourages that too much, do we? So I think my observations are that we have these conversations quite often, and we have really inspiring projects and services, and yet trying to get that strategic change can be quite a challenge. And I think we then talk about systems and commissioning and ways of trying to enable kind of the people with the money and the power to flow that money and power to the places where the creativity could happen. And my observation of that is that actually kind of the systematic strategic change isn't about commissioning. It's about trusting organisations who have got a good track record of being able to deliver really innovative, creative health and care services, trusting them to do it, because commissioners rarely bring the I guess the nimble, dynamic, creative, responsive vibe that people doing it actually have, that they intuitively have, because they've got those skills and experiences. So if there's one way to kill something, it's to formally commission it, in my experience, when we're talking about creative aspects of care and support. So for me, it's that trust and that belief that you can aim for a whole range of really positive outcomes. You can ask organisations, you can ask individuals to find different ways of delivering that outcome, that impact, that involvement, that community connectedness, the joy that we've heard from Shona actually, and the power that we've heard from Artie. You know, there's something about trust, respect, and understanding expertise that is out there, and finding ways to resource that, which are not hugely bureaucratic, but that enable that freedom and that creativity to flow. So I guess my plea for the strategic change is not that we have lots of bureaucracy and commissioning requirements and all of that. Absolutely, you need to trust the use of public money, and absolutely you need to have some validation around all of that. But let's make that as simple as we can, and let's have that creativity to flow. In the organisation that I worked in MHA, the music therapy service was inspired by people in that organisation, brilliantly led by my colleague Ming, who's now become a researcher, and funded entirely by charitable fundraising and donations. And it was because people believed in that they would donate. So they didn't put any limits on how their donations were used. They just wanted their money to make a difference with the creative power of music for people with dementia. So perhaps we could take something from that model and say, let's find a way to use some of the funds that we've got in the health and care system to help that flow, to support creativity, and to see the benefits that flow from, not a huge amount of investment. You don't need that much money to make a really powerful creative difference, but let's try and build that trust and that partnership, and let's take it away from, apologies if there are any on here, let's take it away from the bean counters, and let's make it an expectation, actually, that when people are either in receipt of health services, whether that's kind of long-term or short-term, or when they're using care and support, that creative angle that meets their needs, whether it is the music angle, whether it's the art, whether it's the poetry, the spoken word, the dance, whatever it is that can inspire people and bring them to life, you know, bring that, have that impact on their soul, I guess, is what happens, isn't it? That's what we're really trying to unlock. Let's see if we can do that differently, and let's see if we can enable that creativity of the creativity to flow, would be my observations.
Thank you very much, Liz. Wise words there about devolving power and decision making as to the grassroots as much as we're able to, and the creative approaches as much as the creative activities. So creativity within the systems is what we need. Thank you, Liz. We're going to go back to our presenters, to the South Bank Centre. We have Jessica Santa and Bernadette Russell speaking for the South Bank Centre. So over to you, please. Thanks.
Good morning, everybody. I'm Jessica Santa from South Bank Centre. Thank you, Artie, for reminding us to do descriptions as part of our introductions. I'm a white woman in my 40s with light brown hair, almost down to my shoulders. And today I'm wearing a cardigan that's sort of a burgundy colour and a bit fluffy, a bit itchy, actually. But I'm here today to talk to you about Skylark Cafe. And Skylark Cafe is part of our Arts and Wellbeing programme, which really is centred around reducing isolation and loneliness. And Skylark Cafe is a monthly event for people with a whole range of needs, but mostly chronic health conditions and disabilities. And it's hard to describe what the cafe is, because it's part performance, part workshop, and part social club. And an important part of it for us is about having a new approach to how we engage with our participants. And in this case, we don't call them participants, we call them members. They're members of the Skylark Cafe. And rather than having a maybe more conventional approach where we have one producer that devises and plans the event, one artist who delivers it, and 25 participants who experience it, at the Skylark Cafe, we have about 25 to 30 people in the room. Some of us have slightly different roles, but in that room, we're all creatives and we're all artists, however that might manifest. We're all curious about ourselves and about each other. We're all responsive to ourselves and each other. We all have responsibility for ourselves, but for each other as a collective as well. And we're all decision makers. And I know sometimes we call this co-producing or co-creating, but in Skylark Cafe, it feels a bit more organic than that. The event each month kind of grows out of the community that's in the room. And I really like what Liz just said about having impact on our souls. And that's what I really hope we achieve with Skylark Cafe, is that we're having impact on people's souls. And we do that by a very careful balance of consistency and variety. So the consistency is having a familiar space that people feel confident in. So the room looks similar each time. We're in the same room and it has a sort of set dressing. It's a very beautiful space that people enter into, but it's familiar and exciting at the same time. We always have some storytelling or performance, so that's familiar, although it might not always be from the same person. We always have an element of workshopping or participating in something creative, and we always have drinks and food. So these things are the familiar that make people feel safe in the space. But within that, that enables us to be spontaneous, for people to take risks, and for us all sometimes to be taken by surprise. And what we hope that creates is a brave space and something we've described as a mini utopia. And the Skylark Cafe experience starts from the minute you leave your house and until you get back home again. So people that need help with transport, we provide a taxi for them, and we have many phone calls and communications to make sure they know when it's arriving. And as soon as the taxi gets to South Bank Centre, they're met by one of our staff and taken to the Skylark Cafe room. There's also lots of care in terms of the food and refreshments. Now that we know people are really struggling in the financial crisis, we provide hot lunch as well. And the Skylark Cafe experience continues in between the monthly events as well. So we have lots of phone calls and conversations with people. We spend about an hour and a half on the phone to our members in between sessions, checking in on them, seeing how they are, reminding them and helping them prepare for the next session. We also book about 60 taxis a month to do those journeys. We have many, many cups of tea, and I'm one of the people that makes those cups of tea, which is one of the roles that I really enjoy in Skylark Cafe. So we have many cups of tea, many biscuits, and many bowls of soup. And we have lots of extra staff to support people. And all of that creates the Skylark Cafe experience. So I'm going to pass over to Bernadette, our lead artist, who's going to tell you a bit more, and then we'll hear from some of our members on the film.
Thank you, Jessica. I'm Bernadette. I'm a white woman in my 50s and I've got short brown hair. And honestly, I'm wearing a blanket because it's really cold in here. It's lovely to listen to everybody and see you all. I just wanted to speak a little bit about how we initially created the Skylark Cafe. We were inspired by the playful idea of copying the aristocratic 17th century literary salons and adapting it for the likes of us. So those sort of exclusive private members clubs for posh people, we decided we were going to borrow their ideas and have it for ourselves. So with a wonderful designer called Rachna Javed, we created an immersive experience. So you enter the Skylark Cafe through a wardrobe. And so that introduces people to this kind of magical space. And Rachna introduced loads of beautiful different textiles. So there are fabrics and colours from all around the world to reflect the group that we have. We've got proper china crockery and teacups. Most of it belonged to my great aunt. And yeah, and live music. And we were very keen on being bold and really aiming to create a utopia. And I guess by that we meant a space where everybody's happy and held and can get everything that they need and want. And at the heart of it, although there's been many different creative expressions, is stories. And I'm a storyteller, so that's sort of my creative background mainly. But I mean stories in the broadest sense. So that is about the importance and the love that is expressed by being heard and listening. And I think that's been really successful. But what I'd really like to say is it's also pretty wild, like a 17th century salon. And one of the best things about it is, even though we prepare very carefully to structure and hold the space, we're all members of the Skylark Cafe, and we're very, very happy if something unexpected happens. So I know you're going to enjoy seeing the film. What happened yesterday at the Skylark Cafe was a spontaneous dancing session, which knocked out everything we planned on doing, included the Okie Kokie, then a sort of series of spontaneous poetry performances. So I think the films, hopefully that you're going to see. I just wanted to say, actually, just to say that the film was filmed yesterday and put together very quickly. So it's a kind of guerrilla documentary of the Skylark, but I hope you enjoy it, everyone.
My name is Victoria Ajani.
I'm Ross E. Barnes.
Fanny Abordo. And my Skylark name is Princess Rose Manila,
AKA Baron Sauce and Wrap.
Oh, tell me about that name.
Well, it's a secret. So I can't.
No, because it's in here. Skylark Cafe is a place of interaction for me with very nice people. And I talk and people listen. People talk and I listen too. It's a very interesting place to be. I think it's a place, where you can mix with people, discuss anything, that interests you. participate with them, you know, like the atmosphere. It's really very relaxing. Thing about the skylark, you know, I mean, you know, and you see, you know, people, you know, around, you know, you, and even if you don't know the names, you know, but, you know, when you say, just say hello, you know, something like that, you know, and that makes it different. And also, you know, because I like to mix with people. I know I live in my own, but, you know, I'm mixing with people.
The Skylark to me is wonderful. And I just love the continuity of the cafe now and all the wonderful, wonderful diversity of people of all ages and their natural interest in each other. I mean, I just love that, embracing each other for what they are. There's no judgment or anything. I've not noticed anything like that. There's not a negative thought in this house.
I feel like I belong to this place. And I'm sad when I'm leaving. Because I'll be on my own. All sorts of conversations, like stories of other people, where they were born, how they were born, and what they've done before they came here. And it changes every meeting. It changes for the better. Well, it changes in the sense that this day you talk about plants. The next day you will sing. The next time you will have stories. And I was surprised. I said, you know, I mean, you know, that she chose me. Oh, I said, you know, I mean, okay. She said, funny. She said, no, you come with me. I said, you know, to the Royal Festival. So I just went, you know, I mean, you know, and I think, you know, I mean, I have to be thankful with her, you know, to introduce me. You know, and I will never like miss it.
I try to write a bit of a journal, you know, about the highlights of the day, because I don't want to forget them. And, you know, it's just, you know, it's a special place. It has a kind of a humanity in the way people open up in their, you know, we are pretty much strangers to each other, but not so much that we're not that different, you know?
I didn't know what to expect. Well, I saw people in wheelchair, people who with walking stick like me and everything, with all kinds of disability. I am human being. Real, I am a human being. And that's what I think that's what we all feel. Because I'm no longer lonely. I think, you know, I want to introduce myself, who I am, you know, really. Sometimes, you know, it's difficult for me to say it like before, you know. And sometimes, you know, I cannot really speak what I want because, you know, I mean, I thought to myself, no, I just I lost my memory. But I like really mixing with people. I think, you know, it's the atmosphere when you come here. People are just, they welcome you, yeah? And you tend to know everyone.
I mean, I've been coming here for years and, you know, I call it my spiritual home in London. I feel like I'm inside London, not in London. I feel like I'm inside it.
Great. I'm just going to share a few outcomes with you.
Jessica, I think we'll have to stop there. I'm really sorry, but we've got to give some time to the panel. Can you share with us so we can pass it on to the audience potentially?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much.
Right. Thank you both very, very much. And I'm going to hand over to Martin Green again, our chair, to chair the panel. Martin, I think I sent you a message. I know Grace has to leave at 12, so perhaps you could start with Grace. And I'm very sorry we don't have time for a break.
Thank you very much. And I think everybody would agree what fantastic presentations we've had. And I think the fact that we've run over is indicative of the fact that we've had amazing presentations. And now we have some really excellent people who are also doing some fantastic work. And they're going to talk about how we might embed creativity into the health and care system and what can be done to make sure that it is part of everyday experience for people who use health and care. I want to go first to Grace Meadows, who's the campaign director for Music for Dementia. And Grace has a really long history of supporting creativity in music, and particularly for people who are living with dementia. And she's a really powerful advocate for creativity. So we're really pleased you're here, Grace, and over to you.
Oh, thank you, Martin, and thank you for that very kind introduction. And like everyone else on this call, I'll echo that it's been an inspiring morning. It's very joyful and really is why we all are so motivated by what we do and why we're here. I was going to start by sharing a story, but I don't need to share a story because we've heard so many fantastic stories already. But I would just build slightly on Shona and her fabulous team, because Shona and I met before Christmas. And actually the story that Shona shared was really very similar to the one I was going to tell you about, which is all about what happens when you put music in your home, and the outcome, which is that once you've seen, heard and felt it, you can't undo it, and you have that buy-in from the top, and you will move mountains to make sure it becomes completely embedded because of all the benefits you've also brilliantly articulated and explained this morning. So one of the things that has been popping up in the chat and in the Q&As is, how do we do this strategically, systematically? And that's exactly where I was at about 2 years ago. And I was thinking, look, this is amazing, all this incredible work. How do we give it the exposure, the light that it deserves, and the elevation it deserves? And how do we grow it and make more of it? And this is really where the inspiration for the Power of Music report came from. And I don't know if
Grace, you've slipped on to mute.
Oh, sorry. I don't know where I got to there. But I was just saying that really what we've heard this morning has been a huge inspiration for what we've done to try and move the conversation on strategically. So all of this work that you're doing is fantastic, but as we've all said, we want to see more of it. We want to see it front and centre of how we reimagine health and social care, to try and tackle some of the huge issues that we're facing post-pandemic, but also that they were there pre-pandemic. So what I've dropped into the chat the link to the Power of Music report, which some of you will be familiar with, some of you might not have yet delved into it. But I'll just share my screen because I wanted to talk to you a little bit about this report. So we kicked off in 2021 thinking, how do we do this strategically? How do we do exactly what we've been talking about this morning and make this an integral part of care, not just dementia care, but how do we thread music through what it means to support health and well-being and improve our communities and our general sense of connection? So we said, right, okay, who do we need? Who are our players? We need health, we need social care, we need the music industry, because we chose to focus on music because we're a music-facing campaign, but also very much acknowledging that this is something that can be replicated across the arts, across our creative worlds, but also the third sector, charity, and so on. How do we make this a joined up plan? And we conducted several consultation webinars. We shared a survey online, and we had over 200 responses from people from all walks of life, from secretaries of state to people living with long-term conditions, including dementia. And what we found through this report, and I'll just skip through the recommendations, and I won't go through the whole process in detail, is some really, really key themes came out. And time and again, it didn't matter who we talked to, we kept coming back to the same issues. And those issues were leadership, awareness, so the hearts and minds piece, training and investment. Everywhere we went, these were the things that kept coming back to us. And we couldn't fail but agree with them. We know we need leadership. which is why we've created these recommendations. So we know we need leadership. We know we need this united voice to drive forward what we all want to see happen. So what we've recommended is a Power of Music Commissioner who would set up a cross-government task force and establish a cross-sector consortium. Now, we're working on that at the moment. So the way that we're taking these recommendations forward is some key organisations have formed a working group to drive these recommendations forward until the commissioner is in place. And those organisations are the Utley Foundation with the Music for Dementia campaign, the National Academy of Social Prescribing, UK Music, which is the umbrella body for the music industry, and Universal Music. And we're also working with Manchester Camerata as part of that. So that is our big call here, is around a music commissioner, and we're currently in live conversations with the Department for Health and Social Care and the Department of Culture, Media and Sport to have that role appointed to. And so that's going to be a really key thing that we're working on this year. And then how that task force and how that consortium sits around that commissioner to bring the rest of the recommendations to life. The next recommendation is around the hearts and minds piece, and we really want to see a national campaign to happen, not just a week of campaigning. We want to see a 3-year campaign which allows everybody doing this incredible work to have it celebrated, shared, and to inspire other people, and to show that it is, to Liz's point earlier, that we can all make this happen. But for many people, they've not come across this. We often are speaking to the same people on these types of calls. We've got to get out of that. We've got to spread this message far and wide about the power of music and the arts more generally, and how we can all make it happen and embed it and make it core to how we're reimagining health and social care, because it can be different. We know that. You're all proving that. And alongside that, within this, there is a recommendation to create an online resource centre. And this is where Universal Music have come in, because they've said that they will lead on the initial development of this resource, which is incredible. And actually that development process is underway, and we're looking to launch an MVP, so a first trial, if you like, a prototype of that resource later in the spring. So we're really excited about that, and many of you on the call will be consulted as part of that, because actually we know what the needs are, but we want to make something that really supports those needs. So we're going to be talking to as many people as we can over that development process. Step 3 is the kind of nutty bit about the integration, and it's really how do we integrate music into our health and care and education systems so that we can really unlock that full potential. And that's where it comes into training, and training can mean different things to different people, but it's then working out what the training needs are and developing them and making them available to people. But also, alongside that, someone talked earlier, I think, about the deficit in the workforce, and how actually we know, and Liz mentioned Ming earlier, Ming Hung Soo, who was the chief music therapist at MHA, with his PhD research, he found that the impacts having being exposed to music therapy or being in music therapy sessions had for care workers was so profound. We saw a reduction in staff turnover, a greater sense of morale, a greater sense of achievement. There was less illness, and they were able to recruit better, I believe, into those roles. And I'm sure Shona and her team would agree that actually people are motivated and they want to come to work when they feel supported and they have something to look forward to. So what we want to do is create training at all sorts of levels to support people to feel able to do this, whether it's knowing about a playlist or whether it's wanting to go on and really develop the skills through the work of organisations such as Live Music Now. It's the whole breadth of that, and then making sure it's in our young people's minds that working in care, working in health, and doing so creatively is a genuine, fulfilling career path that they can take. And likewise, we have a musical workforce out there that is just brimming full of musicians who don't know that this is a world that they could be part of, that they could contribute something to. And we found through the pandemic, as I'm sure Douglas would echo, that so many musicians wanted to use their music in different ways to support people's health and well-being. So we need to tap into that. So training is a huge part. of what we're recommending and really calling for. And then step 4 is around investment. It would be naive of us to think that this just magically happens without any investment. But it's not just financial investment, and the Utley Foundation has already committed £1 million and has tasked the National Academy for Social Prescribing to find a further 4 million so that we can create a Power of Music fund and support people delivering this work at the grassroots. But it's also a bigger investment than that. It's all around, all of these recommendations take us to positioning music, but also the wider arts, as absolutely core to supporting the delivery of health and well-being, and reimagining how we think about health and social care, and embedding music and the arts into what good care looks like. And it's really about this value piece and taking it away from it being a nicety, but seen as an absolute necessity. And so what we hope is that people can get behind these recommendations, they can share these recommendations, and we can start to speak with a united voice, because I'm sure many of you will have found that in your conversations with commissioners or whoever it might be, decision makers, they often say, oh, but somebody's saying this over here, and somebody's saying that over there, and somebody's saying this over here. I certainly had it when I first started talking to the music industry. There's just too many voices. Give us one clear message we can get behind. And really that's what we've tried to do with the Power of Music, is set out a clear message that we can all get behind, because this is what we have been told by the various sectors we've spoken to, that this is what's needed. So we would ask and encourage and hope that you will take these recommendations, own them, make them yours, champion them, add your voice to them, add your flavour to them, but use them as leverage when you're having conversations, when you're trying to get your services commissioned or to get further support for them. These recommendations are yours to run with, but also get involved with us. Talk to me, and we can help find your place in this big jigsaw, in this big picture about how we take these recommendations forward.
Thank you very much, Grace. That's really helpful. And now we're very pushed for time, but I want to now move on to David Cutler, who's the director of the Bearing Foundation and the author of the recent report, Every Care Home, a Creative Care Home. And David has really championed creativity in care over many years and has been really influential in putting this issue on the agenda. So David, thank you, and over to you.
Thank you very much, Martin. I think we're not doing that well for time, so I'm going to try and help you by just taking 1 minute. I think people will know that the Bearing Foundation's a funder including of the arts. I will say something deliberately provocative. When Liz from National Care Forum was talking about creativity, there's much that I agreed with. But the problem is that what she's saying is not strategic and is not systematic. So what it leads to is the amazing work that my friend Shona has been talking about at Appleby House, but there's not enough of it, and it's not everywhere. And everyone should have a right to that quality of creative engagement, and that's not what's happening. And that's why I wrote the report that you can tell it's good, because Martin wrote a foreword to it. So that's a mark of quality. And that was deliberately saying, no, this needs to be systematic. I think it doesn't say an awful lot that other people haven't said. You will see that it's quite organisational. It talks about the roles of different organisations, and I'm delighted, and it particularly actually talks about the role for the CQC, so I'm delighted that Karen's going to talk about that shortly. But it goes through those roles, and it talks quite a lot about arts funders, and that's because most of the funding that's coming into working in care homes where professional artists are involved, which is not essential but is a mark of quality, is coming from arts funders. And we need to broaden that, because it's not going to grow much beyond what we've got. The last thing that I'll say is I really want to echo people's point about staffing. Care homes are there for residents, and we're all concentrating on the quality of life for residents. But there's a huge number, something over 500,000 of people working in those care homes, and they are very, very, very important too. They deserve the arts, and the arts will help their work and their interactions and their lives in a very important way too. Thanks, Martin. Obviously, everything's on the Bearing Foundation website.
Thank you very much, David, and thank you for being very succinct there. And now I want to go to Karen Culshaw, who is the Policy Manager for Adult Social Care at the Care Quality Commission. And Karen is looking at how we can engage social care with creativity, particularly in the framework for CQC. And Karen, as you appreciate, we have very little time, so I apologise about that, but if you can be as succinct as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, there was lots I could have talked about, but I'll keep it short. I think the hosts are going to share a link in the chat so people can go and have a look at what our new assessment framework will look like. It's hoping to be rolled out towards the later part of this year. If anyone knows what the regulator does at the moment for health and care, we look at sort of 5 key questions when we're assessing the quality and safety of care. But I think in respect of this agenda, we're definitely strengthening how we can pick up, the really positive outcomes of using this kind of creative, exciting approach to care. The outcomes that people should hopefully experience as a result of that, I'm hoping will really pull through much better and much clearer under the new framework. So I would suggest people have a look at it if they get the link. Particularly under the new caring question, what we will have is a series of new quality statements that we will assess providers against. And those new quality statements really pull out a lot more of the richness that people have talked about a lot today, the impact this kind of approach has on people's quality of life. So we will pick up much more strongly about people's emotional well-being, whether people's human rights are really being respected and promoted in the way their care is delivered, but also things around people's choices, people's preferences, people's social and creative aspirations. That kind of richness of life and joy of life, I'm hoping is something that the evidence, if people are using this kind of approach to how they deliver their care, the impact, like Shona, that was an amazing example of how this could work for regulation. Shona's example at Appleby, they've been able to evidence the impact, the difference this makes to people using that service. And my main call here, I'll keep it short, is we want providers and staff and people using services to tell us about this. I think one of the great shames is quite often we find people are shy, people are intimidated by CQC, so they might not always mention some of this great stuff they're doing if we haven't specifically asked about it. But my great plea would be all this amazing work that's going on, if you're part of it and it's making a difference, tell us, show us the difference it's making, because it is evidence that's really important to CQC and we do take it seriously, and it does add to the evidence that we have in how we assess the ultimate quality of that care that's being provided. So it's really brilliant evidence for us. So please shout about it from the rooftops if you're doing it. That would be my main plea. Okay.
Thank you very much, Karen. I think that's a great plea, and we must all make sure that we follow through on that. And our final speaker, before I go to Lord Howarth, who's going to just give a few final remarks, is Edna Petson. And Edna is a specialist in marketing and communications in adult social care, and understands some of the issues around how we're perceived by the general public and other key stakeholders. And again, unfortunately, Edna, we are very short of time. So if you could just make some very succinct remarks, that'd be really grateful. And we appreciate you being here.
Thank you, Martin. Yes, absolutely. It's been great to hear so many examples of how creative health is making a huge difference in people's lives. And we know that often in the media, when we're reading about social care, the focus, unfortunately, sometimes tends to be more on the negative stories around social care rather than some of the positive, life-giving evidence examples that we've heard this morning. And so really, in terms of changing public image, we want to see more of those stories brought to the fore. where you are sharing some of these good news stories of how it's making a difference in people's lives. During the pandemic, we heard and saw many great examples of creative health in practice, whether it's through gardening, you know, the whole gardening revolution and the impact it had on people's well-being during a really difficult time. You know, it's given people clear examples of how creative health can really make a difference. And so as very much a part of this, it's about bringing those stories to the fore so that journalists, the media can hear and experience some of the great work that's taking place. Over to you, Martin.
Thank you, Edna, and a very clear and succinct challenge to us all, and I think we need to respond to that. I now like to just hand over for some final remarks to Lord Howarth. Lord Howarth is the co-chair of the All-Parliamentary Group on Arts, Health and Wellbeing, and is also the chair of the National Centre for Creative Health. And Alan has been such a great supporter of creativity over so many years. And Alan, over to you.
Well, thank you, Martin. I'd like to echo the thanks you expressed right at the beginning to the team at the National Centre for Creative Health, Alex and Hannah and Alexis, for organising this roundtable, which I think has been a really brilliant, moving, inspiring event. And my thanks, therefore, to the panelists, to all the presenters, to the audience, for what's been said in the chat and the points raised in the Q&A. I think there's been a really good interaction. It's been really invigorating, and we've seen some stunning examples, really moving examples, both in terms of what people have told us individually about their own experience, but also of the very best quality of care, where creativity has enriched the experience of care, whether it's at Appleby, whether it's in the Skylark Cafe, or other venues and other gatherings that have been described. Of course, as everyone has noted, the critical question for us is how to mainstream the best practice and the most wonderful experience that we've heard about. And we've had some challenging suggestions along rather different lines. Like David Cutler, who I very particularly thank, because David, you have been the most perceptive and anticipatory funder of so much good work. So thank you for your very special commitment and support from the Baring Foundation. But like you said, I think we have to slightly push back at Liz, who more or less says, ignore the system, ignore the bureaucracy. What is needed is trust. Yes, of course, trust is needed. Trust and acceptance and recognition and respect, all those values that she emphasized. But I'm hugely grateful to Grace and for what she told us about the power of music, because there we see a really practical approach, getting to grips with the practical necessities, how it is that music, which is your particular focus, Grace, but the arts much more widely, can systematically be integrated with health and social care. And that is what's got to be achieved, so that, Edna, we don't live on a diet of negative stories about social care. And Karen, thank you too for your understanding on behalf of the Care Quality Commission, that there are values and there are achievements, there are experiences that do need to be recognized formally by the system, that are very difficult for the system to measure, that are difficult for people making their returns to CQC to articulate effectively. But if you are understanding the importance of these qualitative experiences and achievements that we've learned about this morning, that bodes very well for the future, because it isn't easy for big systems and big bureaucracies to take account of qualitative matters in the way that you're aiming to do. So that too is very important. The Creative Health Review that that the National Centre for Creative Health and the All-Party Parliamentary Group on Arts, Health and Wellbeing are sponsoring seeks to join with others who've spoken today in finding ways forward. Our ambition, our intention is to make recommendations to government as to what the modifications and the improvements and the strengthenings of policy need to be to ensure that creative health is embedded fully in the health and social care system. We'll be working in parallel with others who share that objective. We hope that we will be able to achieve a confluence so that all these strands of thinking are brought together. Nobody is contradicting anybody else, nobody is rivalrous to anybody else, but through the processes upon which we're all engaged, we can influence the thinking and the practice and the policy of the establishment, for want of a better word, so that the best of the creative achievements that are occurring in the care sector are replicated, are normalized, but being normalized, there is not thereby any kind of dead hand laid upon people. There is abundant room for imagination, for energy, for what creativity is truly for. Thank you for opening so many windows today, for inspiring us all. We've inspired each other, I think, and we'll carry the good work forward.
Thank you, Alan, and thank you, everybody. This has been a fantastic seminar, and it's really been great to see how much participation there's been from all those who are involved in the seminar. So thank you to Alex and her team for organising it. Apologies that I had some problems at the start, but we look forward to working together to make this agenda the norm rather than the exception. Have a good day, everyone.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you. We'll close the webinar now.
Thank you.